All right, well, welcome this morning for the CAP class for November. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about Team Horner culture, okay? And we're going to tie a lot of things together that may seem, they may seem like a little bit abstract, but we're going to talk about a lot of different ideas and philosophies that have to do with the team and how we do different things and how we think about different things as far as the team goes. So in defining our culture, one of the first things we're going to talk about, we're also going to talk about how our culture is linked to our mission statement. Okay, who knows what our mission statement is? What is it?
Working together.
Growing together, winning together, right? A lot of people don't know that that's our mission statement. They kind of think maybe that it's just a slogan, okay? But that's our mission statement. And then the last thing we're going to do is talk about how our company culture guides everything that we do and the things that we think about and how we make decisions and that sort of thing, okay? So any questions on any of that so far? So what is company culture? What do you think about that? Who wants to give me some ideas about what they think company culture is?
Teamwork.
Teamwork, okay. What else? Any other thoughts? Come on in,
Business.
make yourself comfortable.
How we do business, how we treat each other.
How your business, how we treat each other, right?
Aiming for the same goal.
Aiming for the same goals, okay, yeah. What else? Can we kind of think about, like when we think about a company culture, it kind of involves everything though, right? I mean, when you're thinking about it, I mean, it kind of, even in some cases, kind of dictates how you're even dressed every day, right? I mean, your uniform for the job, UPS has a culture, right? And they've got a uniform. If you're a policeman, you wear a uniform. So, I mean, company culture can pretty much encompass everything to do with the business, okay, and how your business is put together and what you wear. I think there we go. So I came up and found a couple different definitions. There's a lot of definitions out there, so you kind of have to kind of craft it to make it fit what is most relevant for you. But what we have here is company culture. It's kind of like the personality of the company, right? If you have different, if you're a fireman, you have a certain culture in the fire department, the same in the police department, in the military, in UPS, I mean in Publix. I mean, they all have different personalities, right? And so pretty much that's a great description of what the actual company culture is. But it defines everything, right? It defines the environment in what we work in. It defines what we wear to work. Do we wear flip-flops? If we're working in a steel mill, we're not wearing flip-flops, right? We're wearing a different protective gear and all that. How we dress, the policies, procedures, pretty much everything that we do is determined and built around what the culture of the company is. Okay, and then also more philosophical, instead of all those physical things, we have also that it establishes either a formal or informal set of common values and beliefs, right? And behaviors that govern the way that we're going to act within the organization and interact with our customers and whatnot. So we've got not only all the policies, procedures, and all that, but also the way that we act and the way that we treat those with us and those that we work with every day. So it's a little bit different. In one particular company, I mean, if you were in the military or something like that, they're going to treat people a certain way. If you're going to be another, in a hospital environment, that might be a lot of protocols, policies, and procedures that have to be done a certain way and all that kind of stuff. So all that stuff kind of dictates what the culture of the particular organization is. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about some of the different types of company cultures. We've talked about the different industries, different types of businesses, government agencies, that sort of thing. And then, so what are some different behaviors established by company cultures? Can anybody think of anything like that? Like what type of behaviors would be different between one culture and another culture?
Ethics.
Ethics? Exactly, that would be a good one, yep. The way like maybe an attorney has to interact with you, the way that even like a psychologist or a medical professional has to keep, conversations, private and that sort of thing. In other situations, you wouldn't have that, right? So again, another example of how the culture and what you establish for your company culture governs and dictates everything that we do and how we treat each other. See if I can get I'm having clicker challenges here. So again, what would be the definition of our culture at Team Horner? What would somebody say about that? Anybody think of anything?
Very team focused.
Team focused, right?
We respect each other.
And what's that?
We respect each other.
Respect each other, absolutely. Diverse, definitely. What else? Anything else come to mind?
Kick
We
your
ha-
competitor's ass.
Kick your competitor's ass? Is that more of an action or our culture?
It's an everyday way of life.
It's a way of life. That's a good one. All right. Well, let's if we think about it, right? When we think of our company culture, that's really it. A lot of times when you talk about the company culture with different people in different companies, if you ask them, they wouldn't even know what to tell you. This is what's so nice about the mission statement and even our culture that is tied to the mission statement that we have, right? Is that, working together, growing together, winning together. Everybody knows that, everybody hears that. But how often do we really talk about what that actually means to each one of us? And how often do we think about that? And how it governs what we do and everything that we do on a daily basis. You think about people in other businesses. If you were to say to them, "Well, what is your company culture? What is your mission statement?" I've seen so many mission statements where individual companies have written these long mission statements, and nobody in the whole company can recite the mission statement except for the person who wrote it. It sounds really great, but they can't get it right. So this is what I think is brilliant about our company culture and our mission statement. And it's so simple, so clear that everybody knows it, everybody can remember it, and it basically governs everything that we do and how we run the business. And we're gonna tie these three tenets of our culture together and talk about that today. And I think that you're going to see different things associated with that you may have not considered before. So one of the things it's not really something published or written, but at the end of the day, because of the culture that we have, our business exists for a higher purpose than just to make money. Okay, that's kind of what's always been behind it. Bill, didn't get into this to say, well, let me see how much money I can make, and it's all about the money. It's all about the money, right? So at the end of the day, we have a situation here that we're very fortunate that isn't the driving underlying purpose of why we're here and what we do, okay? And I think it's very important to understand that. And I think for the most part, we get that, but some of these things are going to be pointed out and brought to a different level of awareness to you, okay? Because they're right there, but how often do you spend thinking about this and seeing it actually in action on a day-to-day basis? Our value system. We have all of these cards. I don't know, how many people have seen these value cards? About half, right? It's like, so this is another reason why we're doing the class that we're doing today, is because all of this stuff is available, but sometimes we're so close to the issues at hand that we don't really think about them or have them in practical purpose. And then if you need extra, you can pass them around and all that kind of stuff. But these value cards have been around for a long time, and there have been revisions here and there over the years. But basically, it describes what these individual statements mean to all of us, and the things that not only the company expects in terms of our behavior, but what we expect from the behavior of the company as well. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. Okay, I think we've got a little presentation here that we want to do. Can everybody see that okay? Do we want to get the lights in the back or something? Or
Much as customer service matters to the Virgin brand, Virgin is one of the few companies, I'd include Southwest Airlines and Danny Meyer's Union Square Hospitality Group, as a place that puts employees first. Why does that matter to you, and why does that tend to result in better customer service?
It sort of should go without saying, and it's surprising that that it still doesn't go without saying at some companies. I mean, if the person who works at your company is 100% proud of the job they're doing, if you give them the tools to do a good job, they're proud of the brand. If they're well looked after, if they're treated well, then they're going to be smiling, they're going to be happy, and therefore the customer will have a nice experience. If the person who's working for your company is not given the right tools, is not looked after, is not appreciated, they're not going to do things with a smile, and therefore the customer will be treated in a way which where often they won't want to come back for more. So my philosophy has always been, if you can put your staff first, your customers second, and your shareholders third, effectively in the end, the shareholders do well, the customers do better, and your staff are happy.
You talk a lot about a management technique that you practice called the walkabout, or in US, managing by walking around. Tell me how that works.
No, look, I think that in this day and age, I like to think I practiced it all my life, but I think in this day and age, it is very easy to be out and about and not stuck behind a desk. You're going to learn so much more. I mean, if I'm on one of our airlines, I will make a point of getting out and talking to all our staff, talking to as many of the customers as possible, having a notebook in my back pocket, listening, and I think one of the key attributes to a good leader is listening. Making sure that you write down the feedback that you get, and very importantly, make sure you act on that feedback. When you get back to base, an exceptional company is the one that gets all the little details right, and the people out on the front line, they know when things are not going right, and they know when things need to be improved. And if you listen to them, you can soon improve all those niggly things, which turns an average company into an exceptional company.
so it's pretty cool, huh? So when we talk about some of those things, and we hear what they've said, especially in the first part about keeping the people first and basically taking care of the people in the organization. What do you think about that?
Definite plus.
Definite plus. Why?
Well, like they said, if the employees are happy, they will produce better, and they will reflect that the customers will see that as well. So it's like win-win situation.
Exactly. I feel the same way, and but why do companies not do that? Why do we get lost in businesses and focus on the equipment. Like if you were in an excavating business and your excavating machine broke, right? You'd be all over that. You got to fix the machine. You got to maintain it. You're going to put money in it, and you don't even think twice about it, right? I mean, can you think of examples like that? But if you were to ask people and you said, that same company, and you said, well, what's the greatest asset in your business? Do you think they would say it's my excavating machine?
No.
What would they say?
They will
People.
It's the people, right? People are, everybody always says that. But when it comes to developing the people, when it comes to taking care of the people, when it comes to treating each other a certain way and interacting with each other and all that kind of stuff, we kind of don't put a lot of emphasis on that, do we? But at the end of the day, it's really the people that are going to make the difference, right? It's the people that are going to actually, run the excavating machine, okay? And keep the customer happy and not hit the customer's house with the digging machine and all that kind of stuff. So I find that fascinating that in many cases, everybody knows that the people come first, but nobody comes out and says it, and nobody really comes out and does anything about it, okay? And that's part of what the tenets are for our business and how we tie this together. So one of the first things that Bill told me when I was put in the role that I'm in now, he said to me, your job is not to maximize profit. So what do you think that means?
That's not an outcome, that's an outcome, not an input.
Right, but haven't we seen in from different organizations and that sort of thing? It's like many organizations are driven by what? The profit, right? It's like whatever we do, we need to make. We're going to make a profit. We're going to have a profit. We got to have a profit, right? And I think what happens is that drive to get that profit kind of undermines all the other things that happen within the business in certain organizations. And so the difference here is just that, we have to make a profit to be able to do what we do and to be able to continue what we do, right? We would go out of business. But the point there was that he doesn't want me to make decisions solely based on what the profit is going to be. So if we have different things that come up, it's like for instance we have snacks at the team meeting, right? That everybody can have there, and we say, well, do you know that that's like $176 and whatever it is, and if we have that every month, we could save $3,000 a year if we didn't have snacks. Why don't we have everybody bring their own snack? It's like, nah, we're not going to do that. You know what I mean? But that's an example of not focusing on the profit and focusing on the reason why we exist as a business other than just to make money, okay? And so all these things go in our mind, and these are the things that we think about in the decisions that are made and how the business is governed. The second thing is that explain reality without laying blame. So I think that kind of speaks for itself, right? But what do you think about that? I mean, does anybody have any thoughts on that? Like what that means, or what it means to them, what it means to you, how you would put that into practice?
Protecting the circle.
Protecting the circle. Yep, that's definitely one thing. And when she says like protecting the circle, an example of that would be, let's just say a customer calls up and I didn't get my shipment today, and you know what I mean? What happened there and what happened there? And say, well, I don't know. That's the shipping department. Those guys screw up every single day. You know what I mean? And I don't want to hear, that sort of thing. That's not what you do. You say, well, geez, I'm sorry to hear that. I didn't know what happened. I'll look into it and let me see what I can find out about it. And I hope we'll do whatever we need to do to make sure that doesn't happen again. So that's protecting the circle, right? So, but sometimes we see the other. It's easier to deflect and put the blame on someone else than it is to actually just protect that circle. The other thing too is that you actually have to know what the real problems are in order to solve the problems, right? So you can't sugarcoat things. You need to be able to have a fierce conversation and say, look, this isn't quite what we expect, or this is the third time that this happened. We need to find a way to do this better. We need to sit down and figure it out and that sort of thing, right? But you don't need to bite someone's head off about it. You don't need to, lose your cool about it, all that kind of stuff, okay? And you certainly don't need to blame someone for it as well, because after they get done doing, the little interaction that they have with whoever it is they're dealing with, they still have to go on and function the rest of the day, the rest of the week, and that sort of thing, right? So I always felt like, if you've got a screamer, you got a yeller as a supervisor, as a boss, it's a lot harder to keep your cool than it is to just, blow your stack, right? I mean, it takes, you got to be calm, cool, collected, composed, right, in order to focus on the issue and just do what you have to do. Anybody can get frustrated and just yell and scream, but at the end of the day, that really doesn't change the situation that you're in. So just different things as far as that goes, but this is also called blameless problem solving, okay? At the end of the day, we want to figure out what happened and go from there, but does it really do any good to berate someone or belittle someone because they made a mistake? We all make mistakes, It is what it is. The important thing is...
Nobody wants to do a bad job.
Exactly.
If somebody screws up, it's...
They know it.
Yeah, and they're happy to get it fixed too, because they're relieved at not being, kind of in the path of the problem anymore. So they're as eager and more eager than anybody else to straighten it out. So give them a chance,
Exactly. Well, I can, I'll tell you a little story. Like when I first took over the branches, we used to have we used to have a branch ranking system, okay, where we said this is the number 1 branch, this is the number 2 branch, and there was metrics, about different things and all this kind of stuff, and we used to rank them. And then, I just felt, my gut feeling was that, like if you were the number 2 branch and you were trying to get to be the number 1 branch, it's like, how much would you really go out of your way to help the number 1 branch, that was above you, It just was kind of counterintuitive, you know what I mean? So I just felt like there was some conflicting priorities there. So I just said, exactly what you said. I said, you know what? The one who's number 8 and number 9 and number 10, they know they're not doing great. I mean, you don't have to tell them that. They probably know that already. If they don't know that, then you obviously have, the wrong manager in that particular branch. So anyways, so we got rid of all the branch ranking system. And then we just had a metric for everyone and just said, look, this is the minimum level of performance, but we're not going to rank the branches from 1 to 10 or 12 or whatever it is anymore. And so we did away with that. So it's just an example of the fact that, different ways of looking at it doesn't change the situation, but doesn't necessarily need to be overcritical on that. Okay, and then this is another thing that I want to share with you. I think this is a really nice video here, so we'll start that one.
There's a pattern. As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way, and it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this: we make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You ready to buy a computer from me? All I did was reverse the order of the information. People don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat-screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat-screen TVs. They've been making flat-screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one. Dell came out with MP3 players and PDAs. And they make great quality products, and they can make perfectly well-designed products. And nobody bought one. In fact, talking about it now, we can't even imagine buying an MP3 player from Dell. Why would you buy an MP3 player from a computer company? But we do it every day. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The goal is not to do business with everybody who needs what you have. The goal is to do business with people who believe what you believe. Here's the best part. None of what I'm telling you is my opinion. It's all grounded in the tenets of biology. Not psychology, biology. If you look at a cross-section of the human brain, looking from the top down, what you see is the human brain is actually broken into three major components that correlate perfectly with the golden circle. Our newest brain, our Homo sapien brain, our neocortex, corresponds with the what level. The neocortex is responsible for all of our rational and analytical thought and language. The middle two sections make up our limbic brains. And our limbic brains are responsible for all of our feelings, like trust and loyalty. It's also responsible for all human behavior, all decision-making, and it has no capacity for language. In other words, when we communicate from the outside in, yes, people can understand vast amounts of complicated information like features and benefits and facts and figures. It just doesn't drive behavior. When we communicate from the inside out, we're talking directly to the part of the brain that controls behavior, and then we allow people to rationalize it with the tangible things we say and do. This is where gut decisions come from. Sometimes you can give somebody all the facts and your figures, and they say, I know what all the facts and details say, but it just doesn't feel right. Why would we use that verb? It doesn't feel right. Because the part of the brain that controls decision-making doesn't control language. And the best we can muster up is, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Or sometimes you say you're leading with your heart, or you're leading with your soul. Well, I hate to break it to you, those aren't other body parts controlling your behavior. It's all happening here in your limbic brain, the part of the brain that controls decision-making and not language.
So it's pretty cool, huh? So that's the description of the golden circle from Simon Sinek, right? And I think at the end of the day, the big question is why, okay? And so when we think of that, we have the golden circle there. And so, kind of going over what he had said, it's a belief or purpose beyond the business transaction, right? Why are we doing the things that we're doing? It's part of why we exist as the business and that sort of thing. Are we really that excited about unloading a truck full of pool pumps and putting them on the shelf and getting them on the other truck and putting them to a pool store? It's just, that isn't why we exist, right? How is the process and steps we take to realize our belief and purpose? And, like he said, some people know the how, but there's a whole lot of hows that none of us know, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that Jenny does that we don't know, a lot of things in the warehouse that happen that we don't know, right? So not all of us really know the how. we definitely know what the what is, right? We know we're in the pool industry, at least hopefully we do. If we don't, we're in the wrong room, right? So, you know, we know what the what is, as he had said, but, and we use all of that to accomplish what our why is. But if we were to look at it all and start from the inside out and start with the why, what would be our why? What do you think our why is?
We believe to be a one-stop shop for all of our customers.
It could be that. It could be that. When you get the first one, the other ones are going to be easy. Okay? So what if we considered isn't that really our why? Part of our mission statement, part of our value statement, really why we're here is to win together. How that all ties in, right? So if we look at our values cards, the things that we have in red, kind of you know, outline that. Partnering with our suppliers, sharing in team profits and success, having fun, and an enjoyable quality of life. I mean, that's our why. It's not to make money. I mean, if we made, you know, money and you were all miserable, that wouldn't be a very inspirational why, would it? Creating a synergy with all parts of the team. Exceeding our customers' expectations every single day. We believe in doing what's right. You're one of the owners of the business. That's why we're here. We all have an ownership stake in the business. Over the years, things have evolved, and the things in black are some even newer things. Scholarships for our children. You know, how cool is that? The last couple of years, now we've had a program where your children actually now can get a scholarship from the company. We didn't have that years ago. That's the evolution of why and winning together. Okay? So when we think of all those things, and we're trying to tie in the working together, growing together, winning together, you know, why we're here, why we exist, the values and beliefs that we have as a business, that's really it right there. So when we think of the golden circle, Simon Sinek outlined for us, why is winning together? Now, if we move on to the next one, how, right? What's our how?
Growing together.
Our how is what?
Growing together.
Growing together, okay? I knew that would be simpler, okay? The same thing, growing together, continuous self-improvement, spiritually, mentally, and physically. I mean, how cool is that? We have opportunities to do all those things here, you know? In the employee survey, I don't remember exactly what the response rate was, but there was probably, was it like 10% or something of the people had said that my company does not give me the opportunity to grow? Something like that? Yeah. I mean, in the employee survey, it came back and said about 10% of the responses said that my company does not give me the opportunity to grow. Who would agree with that? I mean, you have a lot of things, right? A lot of opportunities to grow. You know, continuous self-improvement. It could be tuition reimbursement. Does everybody know that we have 100% tuition reimbursement? A lot of people don't know that. But you have that ability there, right? And you know what I would tell you, I had gotten this this analogy from someone. I've told people along the way, but you know, everybody wants to grow and do something different in the business, right? And so I heard the analogy of this chair. You know, now this chair doesn't look like it was here a year ago. This looks like a brand new chair, so it's probably worth just as much now as it was before. But if you think of a chair, right? A chair's been some of the, you know, we don't have anything here that's been here a long time. Laura changed all that, right? But I mean, we had some chairs here just a few months ago that had been here for 20 years, right? And it was like, that's still a chair. It's the same chair it was 20 years ago. So why is it worth anything more to me today than it was 20 years ago? you know, it's actually probably worth even less because it's used now. You know what I mean? So when you're thinking about your, you know, everybody wants to do more and go places, but how much are you going to invest in doing something for yourself so that you can grow? And we give you that opportunity to do that. I had that opportunity to do that with our company. When I came to work for the company, I started off working in the warehouse unloading trucks. Okay, I didn't go to college. I started when I was 17 years old. It was the first job I had out of high school. And I worked in the warehouse for like 4 years. And then I said, you know what, I want to grow. And then they're like, well, we're looking for a few good men, but you ain't it. You know what I mean? So I said, well, I better go back and get, you know, take care of my education and all that kind of stuff. And so that's what I did. And so the thing is that the opportunities are there for you if you want to take advantage of them. And even then, the tuition assistance wasn't available. Okay, so now it is. So now there's really no excuse to go ahead and do that. You know, invest in yourself and make a difference. And you can definitely grow. Willingness to leave our comfort zone. Who knows what that is? What does that mean to anyone?
I would say like a step out and handle things that you don't supposed to in the best way for the company and your team.
Yeah, exactly. It's you know, they had you know, we over the years we used some of our sales reps that were in different positions to travel for worldwide. Before we had a lot of people travel for worldwide, it was really just Bill that did the traveling, and then eventually we had some salespeople that transitioned into that role. And that was a big thing back then. You know what I mean? It was you got sent to a different area that you were totally you know, unfamiliar with. And one of the I got sent to an area, it was the Middle East, you know, and so it was like that was a bit of a culture shock. But I mean, you know, you don't feel exactly comfortable with it. You're gone from your family for a long time. At that time, the trips were 6 weeks at a time because it was very expensive to travel. And we didn't have the internet and the communication and all that kind of stuff that we have now. So it was very difficult. You know, when you were over there, you had to try to make the best that you could make of it. And I think at one point, I think I was gone for like 42 days or something. I had 17 flights, you know, in that itinerary and whatnot. And it's just a crazy thing. But at the end of the day, it's part of going out of your comfort zone, and you have to feel a little uncomfortable, but that's the way you know, you're going to grow. I heard the analogy the other day of a turtle, you know, and a turtle could sit there in its shell, right, and, you know, be perfectly safe. You know, they keep their head in, they keep their arms in. You ever see them when they're all tucked in? You can't even spin them around. You can't do anything with them, right? They're perfectly safe when they stay in there. But in order to move, they got to stick their neck out. They got to stick their hands out. And they got to stick their neck out in order to move forward. You know, so if that turtle wants to get anywhere, he's got to take some risks. He's exposing himself, right? And you know, to harm. But he could just stay in his shell and be there and have no risk, no harm. Okay, but if you want to grow, this is all part of the growing, and what it means is that there's some risk involved, there's a little bit of uncomfortness, but you know, eventually you get it, and it sticks with you, and it's a great thing. What about some of these other things? Does anyone have anything that, an experience that they might like? I know Dale Carnegie, some of us have been there, and that's a little uncomfortable, right? Laura's been there, right? Or did you go to Toastmasters, was it?
Yeah, Toastmasters.
Okay, so did you feel really comfortable going there the first time? Never. So all these things.
6 months at least.
6 months?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like for me, I'm not, like, to stand up here and give these kinds of presentations, I do it because it's just part of what I do, but like it's not my favorite thing to do. You know what I mean? So it kind of is what it is. We all have these little things, right? But you know, you do it. And so I think it's really neat. And everybody knows about the one-to-one coach, and most everyone down here does, but there are a lot of places in the branches they don't take advantage of that, and they don't know about all these things. Okay, so the next, what's our last one, or what, right? Growing together, working together. Okay, this is the real tough one right now. So working together, and this is probably the area I think that people don't really necessarily have really given a lot of thought to the why, okay? But I know that we all experience every day what the interaction is with working together. But when we look at those things on our values card, you know, one of the top things on there, and I think it is actually the top thing on the value card, it says treat each other with mutual respect, right? But a lot of times we don't necessarily practice that, do we? I mean, if we're being honest, there are things where, you know, we don't necessarily treat our coworker the best that we should, or, you know, we just get so frustrated and so caught up in what's going on in the day-to-day operation that, you know, we probably can handle things better than what we've done in certain instances. I know that's happened to me, and I know that it's happened to other people as well. So when you think about that, right, this tells us, this is our blueprint for how we're supposed to work together. Treating everyone with respect, being honest and ethical in all activities, personally sacrificing for the benefit of the team, having a positive mental attitude, open, honest feedback on behavior and performance. Again, how does this tie into like one of the tenets that Bill gave me? Right? Explain reality without laying blame. Okay, so you see how like all this stuff kind of fits together. It's all like all the little participles that have been, you know, ingrained in me and how I'm supposed to act and lead, you know, from Bill and all the things that he's done over the years, and how that all ties into our mission statement, and how that all ties into our company culture. It all fits together, nice and neat. It's all ties together for a purpose. The difference between thinking outside in and inside out. And that basically defines why we're here, how we do what we do, and what we do. And in case anyone's interested in more information on that Golden Circle, this is a book from Simon Sinek, and it's called Start with the Why. And you know, when I saw that and I went through it, it kind of was a little bit of an epiphany for me about how our mission statement and our cultural values tied together with that. So I wanted to share that part with you. Okay, before we take a break, does anybody have anything that they want to, anything that we've talked about up to this point that you want to share or think about, or just have any comments on where we are so far? Company culture, I mean, what do you guys feel about it? Do you see some of the things? Do you see areas we can improve in? Do you know that you see people acting out and that sort of thing? Anybody have any comment? What do you think? Anyone at all?
I'll make a comment. I noticed almost everybody in here, not surprisingly, is a lot younger than I am. I've worked for a lot of companies, and as a consequence been embedded in a lot of different company cultures. And the things that you started out with, talking about, you know, what about company culture and what's the value of company culture? I mean, it's absolutely correct. Like I said, I've been in super competitive cultures where you're talking about ranking the branches, for example, and things go bad because people are focused on the wrong things. So that's one aspect of a company culture that doesn't go well. I've gone into others where all everybody wants to do is compete for promotions, a different kind of a culture. And what that does basically makes everybody, creates friction everywhere. Nobody really wants to see anybody else succeed because it looks to them like it's a lost opportunity. And then there are other cultures where basically it's just lax and sloppy. Things don't get done right, and people end up frustrated with one another once again. So in all these cases, the two things happen simultaneously, and I think that's the real point, is if the company culture isn't positive, then ultimately the company results are also not very positive. Although when you're in it, it's hard to see that because the results are so far away from the individual interactions. But it's very true. So, you know, I mean, again, coming back to the big picture, I look at this company culture and how well the company has been doing. And I say, well, they're really not separate things. They're really all part of the same thing. So anyway, I just wanted to reemphasize that. If you look around different cultures, it's very, very true.
Thank you, Rick.
To me, I've seen the company for over 10 years as an employee now, and then before working in another companies. And I came from a big company as Microsoft, where you are a number. You're not an employee, you're someone with a badge, that you're identified by color. And here, I think it really, you breathe and you believe in the team. If you are Warnerized, as I think a lot of us refer, you actually believe in the company, you actually believe in your teammates. I think someone in the meeting yesterday said that if we brainwash people, because
Oh, yeah.
they say that everyone talk about how good it is to work in the company, how great it is, are their teammates. So I think it really, we believe in the system that we have everywhere.
Yeah, drinking the Kool-Aid. I've heard that before. They're like, yep, you guys are all drinking the Kool-Aid down there at Horner and all that kind of stuff. But what amazed me personally, too, is that when I started to put this presentation together, you have to organize the thoughts and you have to organize, the presentation. And I started thinking of all the things, that have been said to me, over the years from Bill and different people and everything. And I mean, all these phrases, everything just started to kind of, they were all out there like this, right? And then when I started to put it together, they all just came together and were like, boom. They all like interlocked with each other and became this thing, okay? And I mean, everything. I mean, you hear like, well, we're a bottom-up organization. We're not a top-down organization, right? You hear Bill say that all the time. And you go, yeah, okay, we're bottom-up, But I mean, if you look at this, it fits, right? It ties in. We're bottom-up. Listen to everybody, right? Good ideas, you listen. Nobody has a monopoly on good ideas, right? We're collaborative here. We don't sit there and say, this is the edict and your job is just to carry it out, right? I mean, do we do stuff like that? We just don't do stuff like that. We collaborate. There's another thing that, this was something that, I don't know where I heard it, but I thought it was the first time I had ever heard it. And there's something that says, none of us is smarter than all of us, okay? So, when you think about different things, and sometimes we get so wrapped up in what we're doing, and then we're just like, I already know what to do. I don't want to ask anyone's opinion. I don't want to this, right? But if you just take a few minutes and you collaborate with a fellow teammate in different things, I guarantee you will get a better result than if you would have just did it on your own, or, kind of went and charged off on your own. So again, none of us is smarter than all of us together. So it just all ties in again, right, to working together, right? Another thing I've heard is that, and even what Richard Branson said about the walkabout, right, what he was describing, and he was talking about taking notes, and what was the biggest thing he said was one of the most important things? Listening, right. Yeah, and I've heard too, it's like there's been different quotes out there, and it says, your teammates will tell you how to run your company if you'll just listen. You know what I mean? And so that's the thing. I mean, if you're working in the warehouse, you're working as a driver, you're doing whatever, you know what's going on better there than I do. I don't know what's going on there. You know what I mean? So why would I think that I would just come up with the plan and say, this is what we're going to do this year? Anthony's traveling all over, the Caribbean and all over the place, and I just say, Anthony, from now on, we're just going to do it like this. What do you think about that? It's kind of like, he doesn't know he doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know what's going on there. I've been there. I've listened to the people. I've heard the people. We just don't do things like that. Okay, but there are a lot of companies that operate like that. It's very hierarchical, very a lot of bureaucracy, right? When was the last time that you could go to a company, relatively even this size or even very much smaller, and walk right into the CEO's office at Bill's office? And just sit down at the conference table and say, I have a problem with this. The other guy would be like, security, you know what I mean, right? Bill will say, come on in and sit down. It's just the way that we do stuff here. It's just the way that, it's the way that I grew up in this business. It's the way that that this business is. And that is, in essence, all part of that culture, that we're talking about. Okay? So, anybody else have anything they want to add?
So your presentation keeps making me think about this quote that I heard once, and I'm not sure who it came from, but it coincides with this topic well, and it's, great vision without great people is irrelevant.
Absolutely. And you'll see later on, there's some other stuff when we talk about the people, because it's the people that make it happen, right? It's the people that are going to do whatever it is, regardless of who you are or what you do as a leader. It's you are not going to win the battle. It's the soldiers that are going to win the battle. And it's very, very true. And this is why, you know, we want to focus on the people. It's all about us together as teammates. We're the ones that are going to make this company successful. And you have to believe that you're going to make a difference, and you have to believe that that you know, great things can be done. Because if you don't believe it, it's not going to happen. And I can share with you my experience. I mean, we could go, you know, when people come here, if you, like, maybe you've been here 10 years, maybe whatever it is, right? There's different levels and different changes that have taken place in that time. But when you come here, you see the business, you see the buildings, you see the branches, you see all these things. And you're like, oh, that's nice, that's good. Yeah, I guess that's the way it's always been. You get this impression like it's always been like that, right? I mean, you're just naturally, you think that way, right, when you see here. Well, you can go right across the street, and about, you know, 3 buildings down is the building that I started to work in, and it had 12 people in it, and that was Team Horner, okay? And this was a field, okay? This building didn't even exist, and we didn't own that building, and, you know, and at the time, there was no real, where are we going to be 5 years from now? Or, yeah, we're going to buy that lot over there someday. I mean, that was the furthest things from our mind. We were just, you know, working and doing what we had to do, and working together, solving common problems and all that kind of stuff. And then as things went on, Bill had the vision, and he grew the business and that sort of thing. And it all came together. But I think there's just this natural tendency when you come here to this campus or whatever it is, you just assume that this is the way it's always been. And the reason that I want to share that with you is because if you think about it, and you think about where this business has come in that time frame, right, with the amount of resources that we had at that time, which were very limited, imagine like what this company could be 20 years from now. You know, that, and if you think about that, the possibilities are endless. Right? I mean, it's amazing, the opportunity that just lies just beyond, you know, in the future. So there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, but who's going to make all that happen? Am I going to make all that happen? It's all of us together are going to be making that happen, whether it happens or not. So this is why the culture, the working together, growing together, winning together, it all ties together. So let's take a break for a few minutes, and then we'll come back in like 10. All right, we'll continue. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the culture and how everything tied together and that sort of thing, and how our you know, values and beliefs tie into the day-to-day operations, decision makings, the way that the business is run. But let's talk a little bit about what it takes to build that culture as well. And so, you know, one of the things is that, you know, we can talk about different things, but what types of behaviors do we want to see? And that's a little bit different than a value system, right? Like, you might want to say, exceed the customer's expectations every day, and that would be more like a value. But then a behavior might be always do what's right for the customer, even if it means it's to our detriment, something like that, right? So there's a difference there. There's kind of a semantic nuance there that is different between actual values and the actual behavior. But if you say exceed the customer's expectation, that could mean many different things to different people, right? And it could also mean, well, what do I actually have to do? You know, but then if you give them the statement of always do what's right for the customer, even if it means we lose, then obviously that creates a different activity in your mind and an action, and you kind of know how to carry that out much better. So some of the things that we want to discuss, this is like a framework of how we actually build the culture from within the team. And this is a little bit newer, but we want to try to implement some of these things in some of our future meetings and that sort of thing. So I'm going to be sharing that with you. Define, first of all, you have to define what behaviors and what the values are that you want to incorporate into your culture that drive the company's success. This is, I think, that one of the things in the biggest area where we can improve, and this has to do with ritualizing these ideas and these thoughts. So, when I say that, what comes to mind? How do we ritualize it? What would be some different ways?
Make an example,
Make an example.
so people can see it. That's,
Can see it.
What a ritual is. It's, if you're doing it off in a closet someplace, it doesn't count.
Nobody sees it. Like I noticed, I don't know if Jenny, if you guys changed this or not, but I saw like on the screen TV where it said like working together, and then it had the different things on there. Did you guys just do that, or was that up there?
I think it was up there.
Is up there, yeah. So that's pretty cool. So that's a way to get this awareness out and to talk about it and these things, right? But more, did you were putting that on there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
For
nice.
when it started with the little TV that we had upstairs, so we had only the employees, and then in order to have it all gone, I talked to the team to have it there so everybody could see it.
No, that's very cool. And I mean, obviously, people see it. I mean, it's effective. But even more to the aspect of actual a ritual, like is let's just say at the when we say what's the general objective of the meeting, right? I mean, in the team meeting, everybody knows that, right? And to evaluate day-to-day team performance and prevent performance breakdowns, we can almost memorize it. So the ritual is something that you do habitually over and over and over in a specific time. It might be going to church on Sunday. That's a ritual, right? Some people might like bowling. Maybe going bowling every Friday night's a ritual for you. Depends on what it is. But if we started off every meeting that we had, whether it's a department meeting or whether it was a team meeting, and we took one of our values and say, okay, well, as part of the ritual of starting the meeting today, we're going to talk about growing together, and number 3, we're going to say willingness to leave our comfort zone. Let's talk about that for a minute. What does that mean to everyone? And then you pick a different one and you do different things. It's just all about raising the level of awareness of our culture, what it means to us, and how we incorporate that into the daily things that we do. So that's a way to do that. And we're going to try to do that more. Because again, I just think that inherently when we pick this up and read about this, everybody knows what it is. It all makes sense. But we don't see it enough. Would you agree with that? That we just don't see these kinds of things enough, and the level of awareness is not there. So we want to raise that level of awareness. Select people who are a right fit for your culture, not just because they have a specific skill set, okay? All part of building a team culture, right? That's what the header on the slide was. But, how really do we end up doing it when we're selecting people?
With that computer, I forgot what it's called, and then the test they compare it to, there's like a grouping, there's some kind of way to analyze who fits in best.
Whether it's a fit, we try to do that, that's right.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if there's a seat vacant in customer service for a while and we know we've got to fill that seat, we either pull a salesperson in or we get what? We get someone who knows something about pools, right? You have to fill the seat sometimes, right? And especially like if you don't have a bench, it's difficult. And so what I would call that is that we're selecting people for skill and hoping they have the right culture sometimes, right? And what I think that we should do in a way to improve in that area is to focus more on hiring people that fit our culture, that have the same common beliefs, that believe the same thing we do, and then teach them the skill that they need to do the job. And so that's a little bit harder to do, right? But I think at the end of the day, you get a much more cohesive team, and everybody's already bought into the culture, everybody's working together, that sort of thing, right? Because you can find a lot of people that have the skill, but not everybody that has that skill might fit here. I don't know if everyone knows or not, but I mean, even like the salespeople, right? I mean, they don't get paid commission, okay? And why do you think that is?
They have to do well.
Because why?
They like what they do.
Well, hopefully they like what they do, but that, even if they don't like what we do, we're not going to pay them commission, right? But
Get them more to talk to the customer.
yeah, they can talk to the customer more.
You
Yeah,
don't want to incentivize the wrong behaviors.
exactly. Yeah.
It
So
wouldn't
when
be genuine, yeah, you're only doing it for the money, you're not doing it.
yeah, you become like a mercenary almost, right? And then some. But that's all part of our culture. So the reason that there's not a commission, because that really doesn't fit in our culture. Because what's the first thing on our on the name here? What's the first word? Is team, right? So I've been in places where the culture where salespeople got paid commission, and I've been in places where they were 100% commission. Okay. And the fights that go on in some of those places because somebody else screwed something up that cost somebody a commission check and whatever it is and money, it's like, you screwed this up, blah, 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 now you're taking money out of my pocket, you guys, blah, blah, and on and on and on, right? That's what happens in some of those instances, okay? And so, that's not really what our culture is, right? And we know that if you think of our business as a wheel with spokes on the wheel, you can be the best salesperson in the world, right? But if the order isn't put in correctly, okay, it doesn't really make any difference, does it? And if you're the best salesperson in the world and then the order does get put in correctly, but it doesn't get pulled off the shelf correctly, doesn't really matter, does it? If the customer gets the wrong product, right? They're going to be, hey, what about if when it's inputted correctly, it's sold correctly, it's put on the truck correctly, but then the driver comes in and takes it and throws it on and says, there, sign there, right in the middle of a guy when he's on the phone. Like I've had happen to me with UPS drivers that come in, they've got to make so many deliveries. I've been sitting in my office before and the guy's sticking the thing in my face. I'm like, dude, don't you see I'm on the phone here? Wait a minute, get out of my office. You know what I mean? It's like crazy. So all those things have to happen correctly in order to function properly and give that customer experience that we desire. So that's part of, that's why there's not a commission. That's not why, we're all in it together. Everybody's job is equally important because if just try to do, one of the other things without somebody's spoke in the wheel and see what happens. It's going to all fall apart. Okay, so that's a real important reason of why what we need to really focus on is bringing people in that fit our culture. Okay, that's the most important thing in the world because we can pretty much train anybody to do anything over time. I think I'm probably living proof of that, but we'll see. Integrate, right? New hires into your culture. If you see different people that they're coming in, they're new, and it's hard. You're coming from one specific background, then you come here. We are a little bit unique. We have a little bit of a different style in how we interact with each other, and so integration is a big part of that. If you see a teammate that's having trouble in an area, or they're just not, exhibiting the types of behaviors, that don't fit with what we want, you got to let them know. You got to talk to them and help them, okay, in a positive way. Communicate. Again, that's something we're trying to do better with classes like this, and also with our television screens and the Horner Buzz. And then finally, coaching. Reinforce your culture to get the behaviors you desire. All right, so that's all part of what we're talking about in terms of building the culture and the ways that we can go through the process. Lead by example at every level. Today I was in Bill's office and it was like 3 minutes before the classes got to start, and Jeff is there and they're like, but we're not done. I gotta go. I can't be late. I'm teaching the class. I can't be late. It's just part of what it is. You want to try to lead by example as best you can. Doesn't mean that you're perfect and you don't fall short. Everybody does. You know what I mean? But you try to do the best you can every day to do what you were supposed to do to set the proper example. And then drive your culture through accountability. Again, tying back to what that blameless, right? Being able to explain reality without laying blame. kind of all tying together, all these different things. It's kind of a little spooky how everything kind of all fits together and ties together with the way we do stuff, right? If you look at the Employee of the Year, positive mental attitude, is that anywhere on our value system?
Working together.
It's there, right? Do you see it?
Yep.
Okay. It's so again, a lot of times I think when we put some of these things together, you kind of view them as buckets, different areas of the businesses. Oh, well, this is that, but it's all intertwined. It's all linked together. What's one of the next ones? Be a team player. Okay, is that in there? And then finally, willingness to come out of your comfort zone. Does everybody know that those are the criteria for Employee of the Year? Have you ever heard that before? Have you ever seen that before? So that's how we select, who the Employee of the Year is going to be. So what are some of the obstacles that prevent us from achieving peak performance in the team?
Say that is not my job.
Saying that's not my job. Yeah,
That's the first.
that's a big one. Absolutely. There's a lot of things. Everything that you could say is a positive, almost the antithesis of that would be the negative that would prevent us from doing it, right? But I think one of the biggest things, and this kind of falls into that's not my job, is leadership and ego. Have you ever heard that before?
Yes.
Leave your ego at the door. What does that mean?
Be humble.
It means what?
Be
Be
humble.
humble.
You're not above anyone else on the team.
No.
Right. What else?
You have to be ready to learn.
You have to be ready to learn, be ready to listen. But my favorite one is,
Teach.
no one has a monopoly on good ideas. No one has a monopoly on good ideas. Good ideas come from everywhere. Okay? So that's all part of it. We're in it all. We're all in it together. True leadership is done with an attitude of with servitude and sacrifice. Okay? That's really, at the end of the day, especially I learned a lot of that from my military time. But being a military leader, being a business leader, that's really what it's about. It's not about you being in charge, going back to the ego thing and all that. It's about making sure that everybody has what they need to do their job and taking care of them. That's what real leadership's all about. Okay? Because at the end of the day, like I said before, it is those that you lead and not yourself that's going to determine success or failure. Okay? If you think in every single situation, pretty much the leader can come up with the plan and have some strategy and all that kind of stuff, but it's those that you work with and those that you're supervising that are really going to make the difference on whether it happens or not, right? It's just the way it is. So if that's the case, why wouldn't you go out of your way to make sure that they have everything that they need and that they are happy and that they're taken care of and all their needs are met? Because it's almost like hiring a surrogate to go do something for you, right? You want to make sure that they're the best prepared that they can be because they're going to be the ones that make it happen. Too many times young leaders fall into the boss trap where they're just like, well, I'm the boss now, everybody's going to do what I say and all that kind of stuff, right? It's like you quickly fail at that and then you try to find another another avenue of approach, and usually you end up finding out that these statements are true. Okay? Obviously a lot of the things we do around here, the Color Me Healthy, all that kind of stuff, right? It all, again, has to tie in together. But people can easily see through those superficial attempts at caring. You'll see different companies that, they might do something or whatever. They give you a turkey on Thanksgiving, and then, the other 11 months out of the year, they're kicking you in the butt or yelling at you or treating you with disrespect, whatever it ends up being. So you got to like talk the talk, walk the walk, all that kind of stuff. You can't just, superficially act like the company cares, because people can see through that, right? And when we talk about leadership and how that all ties in with the culture and how we treat each other, people, when they leave their jobs, right, that's it right there. They leave their bosses or their coworkers. Nobody's ever said, I'm tired of using this computer. It just doesn't work the way I want it to. I'm quitting today. It just doesn't happen, right? But what will happen is like, oh my gosh, if Susie comes up to me one more time and says this, I'm just going to lose it, and I've had it, and that sort of thing. So it's the way we treat each other. It's the way that the bosses interact. It's the way that supervisors, it's the way that teammates interact. It's the way that we treat each other that really make the difference on whether or not people are happy with what they're doing. And again, we turn it all back. People aren't happy. We're not going to get the result that we want. Okay, here's an example. When we were in the military, we had all the senior NCOs and the officers would have to dress up in their uniform on Thanksgiving, and they would go to the mess hall and they would serve all the families of all the soldiers. Okay, and then after they were all served, then you could go home and have Thanksgiving with your family. But the whole point is that you were thankful for them and you put them first above you. Okay. Just as an example to show that, they are the most important thing. It's the individual teammates, and in this case, soldiers. And then when we were out in the field, like when it came time to eat, it's like the officers always ate last. You were the last one to eat, okay? And it's like the thing is that, and that's because if you ran out of food, then you would be the one to go without, and not the soldiers, okay? So again, everything, it supports everything that we do. The bottom-up organization, Bill has always had this kind of philosophy, but it's not just here. These principles are well and ground in leadership and effective leadership and sacrificing and putting others first. So also, silos. When we talk about silos in a business and we talk about impediments to building a team, what do you think we're talking about when we talk about silos? Come on, Indiana. You got silos out there in Indiana, don't you? Got a few, right? It's like, let's look at a silo. I know it's kind of an odd term, but silo looks kind of like that, right? I'm not a great drawer, but what's it do a good job of, right? Does a good job of getting stuff in at the top and coming out the bottom, right? And so, when you put, if you can use the analogy of putting corn in here and putting grain in here or whatever it is, and maybe oats in there, it keeps things separate. But it does a really good job of flowing material through it, right? It's kind of the same way in a business. If you have different departments, different teams, different companies, different branches, they do a really good job generally of communicating and working together in their silo. Okay? But one of the things that silos have is they've got walls on the side and they're designed to separate, not to work together. And so business management studies coined this term for silos within an organization when you have breakdowns in communication and interaction between different departments and that sort of thing. So that's a big obstacle when it comes to working together as a team. And it's a challenge. It's never going to be perfect. There's different, if you look at the way AquaCal runs their business, they're a manufacturing company, right? Horner Express is a distribution company. They have different ways that they have to run their businesses because they're different. Worldwide is a different business. They have different policies and procedures in the ways that they have to run their business, right? So it's important that we're able to interact between those different businesses and communicate across the boundaries of the silo in order to do the best that we can do. So this is always a challenge, but again, something to be aware of. Has there ever been any communications where, like we're in customer service and then we're saying, well, we're having a hard time communicating with purchasing, or we're having a hard time communicating with this, right? That's an example of a silo, and so you have to figure out ways to help each other and craft strategies and policies so that you can, break down those silos and communicate freely between the different departments and whatnot. So it's just an example as to why that you might think that it's a unique it's a unique problem to have, that customer service might not be able to communicate with purchasing, which might not be able to communicate with sales as well, or whatever it is. But this is a common business problem and a common challenge that happens in every organization, and it's just something that that you have to be aware of and know that it exists, and not get frustrated with it, and just figure out ways to work better together through it. Okay. This is a book. It's called The Canoe Theory, that I really like. It kind of ties all of this together with the thought process that we have, and describes actually the analogy of a canoe as a different business. And in that regard, we're all in this together, right? The same in a canoe. Everybody gets in the canoe together. We're all in it. Whatever happens in that canoe is going to happen to all of us. It has a direction, a vision, and a strategy, okay, just like a business. Everyone has a seat and a paddle and is expected to paddle, okay? It's like that's one of the things that I've heard people say before, well, I knew I was going to have to work. I just didn't know I was going to have to work that hard, or I knew I was going to have to do this. It's like, yeah, you actually have to paddle. It's part of being in the canoe. Those who won't paddle have to get out of the canoe. Okay, this is one, right, where it says if sometimes if someone doesn't paddle as good as another, you can make up for that in different things. But if they prevent other people from paddling, then that's a big no-no, right? That now, not only are they not really maybe performing up to their fullest potential, but they're preventing other people from meeting what they need to do. So that's not good. If someone has a personal crisis in the canoe, then we're going to paddle harder for them, right? We're going to go ahead and make up in them, until they can get back on their feet, or until they can get well, or if they're out sick or whatever it is, we're just going to work harder. We're going to do what we need to do until they can come back in order to help our canoe mate. If you're not happy with the canoe, choose a different canoe. A lot of times we see people that are just not happy. And for whatever reason, everybody is an individual. If they're not happy, then it's not a big problem. Just choose a different canoe. But if you decide to stay in the canoe, one thing you have to do is support the canoe. Okay, this is another big negative, and that is that you don't want someone to come in and undermine the canoe, right? It's like if they're not happy, then you either should support it or have the integrity to leave. Okay, don't undermine the canoe. It's like a cancer. All right? And at the end of the day, I hope that we've kind of effectively tied in our mission statement and our company values to the things and the practices, policies, procedures that we have in terms of running the business and how we think about making business decisions. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions? It's on the wall. It's on the wall. It's everywhere. But I bet you've never seen it quite like that, right, and how it all tied in. But how about anybody want to discuss anything? It's 12 o'clock, so I think we're just about ready for lunch. But anybody have anything they want to discuss on any of the things they've heard, or any questions or anything like that? Okay, well, I appreciate everyone taking the time to make themselves not a chair, right? Self-improvement, that's great. Everyone here gets that. And it's really fun for me to be able to share all these kinds of experiences and thoughts with all of you. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right.